The opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
This is the Anime Roundtable Canada, presented by Anime North. You can contact us via email animeroundtable@gmail.com, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Anime Roundtable, and on the web, animeroundtable.com. As we near the end of this Sunday evening, January 29th, 2023, you noticed I had to pause before I said the year because of the mistake I made last time.
Yeah, you would have fixed it eventually.
No, I could have edited it out, but some days you're just a little bit lazy.
It's whatever year you want it to be, Mike.
Well, wouldn't we like to turn back time and make sure maybe some parts of the last 3 years didn't happen? Although if you want to take it all away, then that means how many episodes have we done? The last 60 some odd episodes of this podcast wouldn't exist either, right? Because I think we started the pandemic series at episode 18. And here we are. This is episode 78 of the second era. Aside from everything else we've recorded on top of all of that. So 60 some odd episodes, regular episodes, and then at least a dozen extra on top of that. At least. That could be wrong, though. My estimate could be wrong. Yeah. Some days, what do I know? Okay. Well, I'd say if you're watching the video, we are recording this again on video, but that video is not likely to quickly see the light of day. But if it does, as you can see, there's only 3 of us around the virtual table tonight. Mike Nicholas overlooking 6 points, James Austin in Mississauga, Kevin Ing in Mississauga. Mohammed Shamarki had to bail out at the last second. I know anything can happen, so he just couldn't make it tonight. Amy is otherwise occupied for Sunday as well. So we'll talk with them next episode. I just joked around. James and Kevin were both in Mississauga. Obviously, I've mentioned I'm from there too. Let's acknowledge it just for a couple seconds. Word came down this morning that the longtime mayor of Mississauga, Hazel McCallion, passed away at the age of 101 this morning. And obviously tributes have come in from across Canada. She was the longest serving mayor, I think, in the Guinness Book of World Records. She held Mississauga for the better part of 36 years. And when you are around that long, you will, overall, your legacy will be looked at positively, but not perfectly. And I know that's going to be the beginning of a long discussion as to the legacy of Hazel McCallion. James, Kevin, and I were kind of talking about it before we hit the record button a few minutes ago. Do we want to rehash any of that, or would it take just too long and we all got to go to sleep tonight?
Probably would take too long, and it's like one of those things. Some of the reason she probably continued on, stuff like that, there was apathy in our community. And then, as one politician, I think, said, and they brought that quote up again, no one really wants to fight or can beat your favorite grandmother, right?
That's one way to put it, I guess.
You know, I will quickly say that If I have my facts straight, this woman rollerbladed to work even in her 80s.
Remember, she got hit by what was it, a truck or something like that in her 80s in Streetsville, and I think the truck took more pain than her.
And that was when she finally was driven to work instead.
I think she had actually hit Kevin a couple of street poles. One street pole going down a major road in northern Mississauga to get to an event. And I forget which road it was, but anyway, suffice it to say, there were a lot of people that talked to her and said, a lot of people your age are not driving on their own. Can you please have someone drive you to these events and that? And so the public just decided, okay, we'll just pay for that. But it was probably more for our safety than her safety.
Yeah, that's probably a fair statement. Hazel McCallion's car was unmistakable in Mississauga by her license plate, Mayor 1.
No, you'll never.
It's hard to forget. I've nearly run into her, literally a few times.
While
driving. And I've seen her in person a couple times over. Shook her hand a couple times. So I don't have a bad impression, but like I said, when you hold a spot, when you hold a position like that for as long as she did, regardless of how old she got, and she gave up the mayor's chair when she was in her mid 80s or early 90s. That I meant to say.
I was going to say early 90s, Mike, because it was only
it's been almost 10
just
years.
less than 10 years, so it was in her early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was still doing stuff in her retirement, so it's not like she just retired.
She was still involved with Sheridan College, UTM U of T in Mississauga, the Greater Toronto Airports Authority that runs Pearson Airport. Yeah, she was.
And she got over 100, as you said, so that's quite an accomplishment too.
Yeah,
101. She would have been 102 next month on Valentine's Day. So.
On Valentine's Day, yeah.
So, we'll as I said, we can talk a lot about what the good, and there's good, but obviously
lots of good.
It isn't perfect either.
He definitely was, we talk about mayors and stuff like that, but it's like a lot of them, right? She was definitely in the community. She was at different events. She was engaged with all the different constituents and stuff like that. And sometimes that doesn't always happen, right? And that was throughout her entire tenure, and she cared about the city, which is a big thing, right?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think of her as the holy goddess that everyone
in Mississauga
sees her
lot of people do.
But her work is commendable, and I was happy to have her as a mayor rather than some of the other mayors that I've seen in different municipalities.
You're saying you don't want the crack mayor?
Thank God, and not the crack mayor. But we're paying for it now.
Well, as you know, right?
Brother is making us pay for it now.
As she said, she ran the city basically like a business, and she would her own spending, which is not to spend much, and that is come home to roost, as we know, because she kept property taxes low and stuff like that. But sooner or later, that's going to turn around, and all of us are going to pay for it. And the other thing is, as you had mentioned, many people mentioned, is urban sprawl, right? And unfortunately, she was one of those mayors that that was a part of her legacy, and that we'll have to grapple with.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And now when you try and put the
not enough business areas in terms of
And the other thing is, all the other mayors in the GTA, if they had gotten together sooner before they had built all the different houses and different things, maybe we could have had a better transit system. Maybe have the TTC or some subways further out and stuff like that. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be.
Yeah, and remember, and it's also Mike Harris's fault, and we've talked about him before, so
long.
Don't have to really hash that over, other than fuck Mike Harris. But that's all I'm going to say on that.
Okay, yeah. But as I said, I thought we'd at least acknowledge that. And once again, it is also worth mentioning, and as I start to try and pull it into our typical discussions on this show, Mississauga's twin city is Korea City in Aichi Prefecture. Yeah, and anything involving Korea City in Mississauga actually is a key spot for a lot of our fandom. Most notably Korea Park, which is across the street from Square One. And that's known because that has a lot of sakura trees. When they bloom, it becomes mini Hyde Park-ish, I guess.
It's definitely small footprint, but definitely a very serene atmosphere, even though it's small. So a little oasis in the city, especially now with all the towers towering over it, I guess now.
Yeah, and very picturesque. Great for a camera and great for those spring cosplay shoots that you probably will see dotted in the month or so before Anime North.
Then in our twin city, we have a little bit of Mississauga, I believe, in there because we have a park named after us over there. And I think they have a miniature replica of our city hall or something like that.
Yeah, well, for maybe somebody from our city, that's a bucket list visit. And whenever, Japanese students, specifically from Korea City, come to visit the GTA, they are obligated, I guess, maybe that's the worst word I could use, but they do end up visiting Mississauga for obvious reasons. Okay. So whenever we start episodes where we have people who weren't on last time, chances are one of the more regular things we're apt to do these days is to ask them if they listened to the last episode and do they have a thought on said last episode, which means this discussion turns to James for a couple minutes since he was.
I do have quite a number of thoughts.
Okay.
I also learned a lot of things. I learned about Naruto, the actual translation they should have used. I'm guessing translating Naruto to English, basically the real translation is Matlock.
Oh yeah, that yeah.
Is that correct, Mike? After I heard that sound.
Good with the.
I'm confused right now.
No, because I put in that sound effect because.
Oh, okay, that one.
I put in the sound effect
from Abe Simpson or whatever, where he's shouting it. Remember?
Yeah, and then basically reminding Amy how old she is as a fan.
Oh man. But and I know speaking of Amy, she had mentioned Lupin Zero, and I had actually watched all 6 episodes of that. So that's interesting because that was TMS, of course, and they decided to do, I guess, a net anime. Supposedly, they premiered that actually at that New York Anime Fest. Remember, in November. But High Dive is streaming it. They did the 6 episodes, and it was quite nice. It's kind of its inspiration is basically part 1 Green Jacket series. He does wear the green jacket at the very end, but it definitely has that feel of that first series, more grittier in the animation, the characters and stuff like that. Obviously, they're missing characters. No Fujiko, no Pops, no Goemon. So you just have Lupin in his teens, and then you actually have Jigen in his teens, and them first meeting and them going through their adventures and stuff like that. You also see Lupin's dad, Lupin II. You also see, quote unquote, the original Lupin at one
as
point.
I said, well, I guess,
and then you see how he, quote unquote, becomes Lupin III in his first heist and stuff like that. And that kind of leads that one moment, as Amy said, where yes, you have Lupin and Jigen, their younger selves, on the top of a rooftop. And then they're talking, and yes, he not just stole Jigen's heart, but he stole the audience's heart as well, I'm sure. The ultimate theft, huh?
Happy, and cute.
But no, it was fun because it was kind of one of those things where it was 6 episodes. It was short, but it was not overstaying its welcome and stuff like that, I thought. So which was nice.
So yeah, which has me wondering, when does a title could overstay its welcome? I guess since you said the word.
And I don't know. I guess the thing too is, remember, they were going for something they had never done before, right? They'd never done something like, you know how we think of like Tiny Toon Adventures or Muppet Babies or James Bond Jr. or those things where they quote unquote take this original character and make them younger and stuff like that, looking at them as teenagers or kids and stuff like that. So they definitely did it in the Lupin style, in their own style, closer to part 1, and it was a nice change of pace.
You two are probably too young to remember shows like Flintstone Kids and Yo Yogi, because those were Saturday morning cartoons that imagined those characters as kids. And ironically enough, in the case of Flintstone Kids, Fred's dad in that series was played by the man who played Fred in the original Flintstones. Same voice, using the exact same voice. So, I guess that's, I guess, another subject of those type of how to reuse an IP in these times, right? And not really a reboot, but going back a little bit. Okay, anything else stick out to you from the episode?
I guess the last one was, I think you guys talked about Kodansha and stuff like that, pulling their simulpubs and things like that from all the different sites, Azuki, from Crunchyroll and stuff like that. And I guess it's, as you guys said, I think they're gearing up to either partner with someone or do it by themselves to try to do, I guess, their own version of either what Viz and Shueisha did with Shonen Jump and Manga Plus, or even, as we know, what Katakawa has done, their different take with Bookwalker and stuff like that, where it's more you're not streaming it, but you're purchasing said chapters or said volumes from different companies and stuff like that, not just Katakawa. But we'll see what Kodansha comes up with. But it sounds like that's what may happen, especially since they said more news to come, right? From Katakawa's, sorry, not Katakawa,
Sounds like
from
they're
Kodansha's side, you know what I mean? So, and they
Yeah,
do have a big catalog. So, depending on if they do go streaming, as Kevin said, they have a big catalog. Maybe we could see some things we haven't seen before. But I would say my hope isn't there because, yes, they have thrown everything to everyone under the sun. If someone wanted manga, they would throw it at them. And so it wasn't like we got a big amount of their catalog to begin with from those other sites and stuff like that. So my hope is not high, but you never know. Maybe they'll change our opinions depending on what they come up with in the end. If it's just by themselves, or maybe they partner someone to do something different digitally or virtually.
I don't expect the entire back catalog of Kodansha Comics USA to be up all at once, but I think if they start with bringing back all of their simulpubs, or just doing simulpubs of as many of their ongoing series as possible, that'll be a good start. But if they really want to make an impact, they should have a sizable amount of their back catalog available for a monthly or yearly subscription. And then that could force Viz's hand in potentially doing something similar
for the other half of their catalog.
Yes,
Yeah,
because Viz will not put up their shoujo titles
Or
in a
they're
single
non-shonen jump,
service
or more specifically, or more broadly, anything non-shonen jump.
unless it was in Jump Plus. So the exceptions are Romantic Killer and Boys Over Flowers.
And then, yeah, Manga Plus has other stuff and things like that. But as you said, not really much on the shoujo. They have done nothing with Shoujo Beat. And you would think, since that actually had a real live magazine, one day we could see something on the virtual side and stuff like that. But it depends on, obviously, what other players do in the market. And maybe that would shake them up. You never know.
I think they just decided that the math didn't work out. That's always been my pet suspicion.
It's funny because it would be low hanging fruit, I think, on the virtual side. And the other thing is, as we know, talking about Kodansha, is a lot of their series, they just decide not to put in print. They've just done digitally. So hopefully that means if they've got the files and things like that, they can get the ground running depending on how they want to go and stuff like that. And if all the genres, that's a big key thing, as you said. What genres are they going to start out with if they do decide to do it by themselves or partner up with a streaming option? Is it going to be multiple genres, shoujo, shonen, and so on and so forth? Or are they going to be very picky with how they go?
You know what? I will subscribe for a month or two so that I can finally finish reading Nodame Cantabile.
Hey.
I could finally finish reading School Rumble. I could finally finish reading Beck and Suzuka and the Drops of God and
We're
Initial
gonna talk.
D
Yes.
Now
and all
you
those
gotta
other
watch
ones
out
that got
about.
canned by them because either they didn't think it was worth printing when they did the whole Delray transfer, or the ones that they forced Tokyo Pop to quit releasing.
Well, see, you just brought just a quick aside. You just said Comixology. Do we want to acknowledge something concerning Comixology with all that's happened there in the last 2 weeks?
We do know they have been swallowed whole now by Amazon, as they say. But you mentioned Drops of God. Obviously, they had made that deal with them, but they had made a deal for a few series, more edgy series, I believe, for with what was it, Bookwalker and stuff like that, the Katakawa side. So it'll be interesting, those deals where they made side deals with other things, to see if those ones come later or not. That'll be interesting, or how many deals they may have made we never knew about series.
Okay. All right. So, anything else? That's it. I've yet to put. To be honest, as we're taping this, I had yet to put up any link to the episode on the actual website.
Oh, and Kodansha's still on the hook for not doing the Drops of God series finale, meaning the whole new series that is the conclusion of the Drops of God, which is also like 20 something volumes, but I don't think they'll put it out at this point, to be honest.
Well, Mike was going to tell you there, Kevin, that don't worry, you can just watch Drops of God and stuff like that on Apple Plus or something like that, I
It's
hear.
not going to be the same.
well,
And I don't have Apple TV anyway.
Apple TV Plus, yeah. Well, it's not much of an investment, but
I'll just have to pirate it or something.
well, yeah. I mean, who am I to? Who am I to be morality police these days?
Actually, it's by thinking of pirating and stuff like that. It's like I was looking. I told Mike, Kevin, that Crunchyroll, I'd mentioned a few episodes ago. Remember that Game Boy Color game that they quote unquote were making about the Y2K and all this other nonsense. So
What?
yeah, they made a Game Boy Color game. I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's all marketing cost to them, but anyway, they had limited run in them selling it. They just stopped today, but they released the ROM, so you can actually go to a certain site. You can probably search it, and you can either play this Game Boy Color game featuring their mascot Hime in a web browser, or you can download the Game Boy Color ROM and play it in an emulator, which I'm sure
Cool.
we're all using for legitimate copies of games that we somehow saved from our carts, right? Not finding off the internet. But who knows? Do you want to get a ROM off Crunchyroll? Because I'm sure Sony would not put any viruses or malware in behind, correct?
Yep, because I'm sure as not paying like $400 for a complete box copy of Pokemon Crystal at this rate.
But
No.
actually, thinking of video games, that was another thing that this week a big game came back, GoldenEye N64.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And it came back on obviously Switch for the Switch Online Expansion Plus, which I do have. And it was fun playing with the N64 controller, even though I know some people don't like the controls in that, didn't have the modern controls on that side. I know Xbox, they released it on Game Pass, and you can get with Rare Replay as well, and that had the modern controls and achievements and stuff like that, but it was still bare bones because I guess of licensing deals. But the one thing I did notice, I do have Rare Replay physical. I bought it for next to nothing. And guess what? And they actually admitted it on day one. They said, well, yes, we did say you can get GoldenEye on Rare Replay. We're doing the update. But guess what? If you have a physical copy, middle finger to you, you do not get it because of our licensing deal with whoever. And you only
Ouch.
get with the digital copy of Rare Replay, which is just
Wow.
like, what? That makes no sense.
Wow.
It's almost like they don't want you to actually own the game. because they know, obviously, with the digital version, you don't technically actually own the game, even though you've bought the digital version.
Oh, jeez.
I feel like it, but I could be totally wrong.
Bullshittery.
Mm.
Yeah.
But
I feel like I would just play it on Game Pass if I was in that situation. Play it for like the 1 or 2 months that I'm interested in, and then just never play it again.
Drop and
I'm
drop.
just
Pass.
enjoying it on the N64 emulator, and it's.
Or yeah, I would
what it
do
is.
that because I'm just like I'm not participating in this like arcane system of me like buying these games that I don't own.
Yep.
I'm like not to say that I never do it because I did buy the new Age of Empires 2 releases on Steam, but that was because if I ever wanted to play with people, playing it on the old disc versions would be logistically more tricky.
Mm.
So I pick my battles, but I
Yeah,
otherwise
that's the
don't
thing
buy
these days.
digital, as I've said multiple times.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's one way to summarize a little bit of the last couple weeks. Seriously, that's about all that stuck out to you from episode 77, James?
Yeah, I think most of it, and then we added a few extra flourishes there, but we
Yes,
always
we
do
did.
that.
Well, that's how this show kind of works.
Well,
Okay.
thinking of it, since we talked about Sony putting malware on our computers, I hear that their favorite subsidiaries, right? Crunchyroll, Funimation, whatever you want to call it, they're into award season because, of course, it's award season for everything, right?
Yeah. Do you want to talk the awards now, and then we'll talk about the journey into the past, my journey into the past later in the episode?
Sure, we can talk about it probably near the
Well,
end and stuff like that
yeah.
because they'll ducktail nicely into the community calendar.
Oh yes, that's right. We did mention we want to do that. Okay. Yes, and don't forget to put that link there later. Okay. So it's award season. Oscar Awards had their nominations this week. No anime.
Well, that's
Not
par for the
to say
course.
that. That's par for the course.
That's kind of expected, unfortunately. I guess based on what we had and stuff like that, even though we have seen tons of anime each month in the theaters at Cineplex and even in the States and stuff like that, and it just keeps trucking along at its own pace. We saw this week, they talked about Kaguya-sama, right? They said February 14th, it's coming to North America, but probably that may just be for the States. I'm guessing if we look at Cineplex, they'll show us different dates.
They usually give it to us on a Thursday as a debut as of late. I believe the Klein movie was Thursday.
Mm-hmm. If I could get a
that
matinee,
screened like last week, and then Eva, I think, debuted on a Thursday.
If I could get a matinee, that one would be one I'm interested in, since I'm constantly reading the manga and watching the anime to this point.
Definitely feels like each month, as we said, especially the last year, Crunchyroll, Funimation, whatever you want to call them, G Kids, and then 11 Arts, they've like each month they found a movie to put into theaters and stuff like that if people wanted to see it in different places across North America, which is a nice thing to see because it'd be a rarity, of course, as we know, to actually see anime in a theater many moons ago, right? You barely get one a month, I'm sure.
Barely. So yeah. So what do you do? What does the anime industry do after being constantly snubbed by all those awards? Make up their own, and there's a couple of them.
Well, they've
got
started.
snubbed,
Those
man.
ones started a few years ago. Don't forget, Mike. Like, of course, ADV tried to do their own awards back in the aughts. I remember, and
I remember this too. Yeah.
Yeah, but that only lasted so long. And then obviously they've been people have tried to do some dub awards and stuff like that on the English side and things like that. But I think over the last 8-9 years, it sounds like we've had the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. That's what they call it. And then we also have had the fan run from Reddit, supposedly the Reddit Anime Awards, which is from the anime subreddit. That one's interesting because it's they said that Reddit's over 6.3 million subscribers. And that one's a little different because they have the same category. But if you looked at previous winners in that, they have a jury system, which gives an award, and then they have the public vote. So you could have two different winners, one for the jury and one for the public vote and stuff like that. And the
Mhm.
jury one is
Mhm.
they said each member that I guess they get from the jury, however they select that, they basically are asked to actually view the nominees before casting their votes and stuff like that. And that this one, of course, I think looks at the whole of 2022. So that means Chainsaw Man and things like that can be actually in the awards and stuff like that. And so then that leads to the question, of course,
It
well,
must
wait
be
a
you.
second, why can they be there but not in Crunchyroll's anime
Yes.
awards? And that's because obviously for them, they said they're looking from November 2021 to September 2022. So the fall season isn't included in Crunchyroll's
Interesting.
anime awards. And I'm not sure if that's because they were worried maybe people, if they were voting publicly, maybe had not watched said anime series and stuff like that. Because basically, for all the awards that were public vote for them, they could vote each day on their specific title and stuff like that. That was
It
nominated
eliminates
for
recency
categories.
bias.
Yeah. That's what I was about to. That's the word I
That's
was
it too, yeah.
looking for.
Because that can be a thing with the other award shows too, and that's why a lot of the Oscar bait movies debut during the last 1 or 2 weeks of December, because they want to make sure they get nominated, and it's just more fresh in the minds of the public and the jury.
Yeah, and then sometimes whenever award season, this is in the past probably. I don't think this is like a more recent practice. But then you'll see a re-release of a film just before the award season nominations and voting begins too. Right? Something that had been come out much earlier in the cycle be re-released just as the awards voting begins well. So
And I guess, as they said, for the
recency bias
nominees,
is a thing. That I mean, that's just the impression I get.
Yeah, it usually works against things that air earlier. So that's why, despite me being happy that Everything Everywhere All at Once received a lot of nominations, I don't expect it to win Best Picture.
Okay, but yeah, because it came out a while ago, didn't it?
I want to say it was like April, May, June, like around that time of
Yeah,
year.
it's been out for a bit. Yes.
I'll double check quickly.
Okay, James. I
No,
know
I
we
was-
interrupted your chain there. What were you thinking?
I was thinking, at least on the anime awards, since we're talking most of it, I guess the good thing too is obviously all these different categories. We could go through a few, but
It was
it seems
March.
like obviously the judges selected the nominees and stuff like that. And that, of course, the public, when I went to look at it, especially for the dubs, it goes in the language, I guess, for which your account is. So I guess if you're registered to Crunchyroll, you can make the vote and stuff like that. But that ended on January 25th. And so it was like a simple poll and away you sent it in, because God forbid if they had put in allowing you to choose your own nomination and stuff like that. I'm sure best anime each year would definitely be Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
It's just like every year it'll be the same one, right? But
You know
the
what's
other thing
interesting?
is,
I would have included the fall season stuff if it ended within the year. I think that's how I would have gone about it. But then, yeah, recency bias. Kinda hard to say.
I think.
But then,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it
think
technically
it's
a weird
finished
thing.
during that time.
Yeah, I can if that's the argument for why Crunchyroll did it. Okay, that's a fair argument.
But then
Yeah,
it wouldn't be
because some
fair
of the
to the
public
ones
vote, I
that
know,
were like a 2-core season, though. That's the thing too.
But yeah, basically where the second core was in play at that point.
but
Is
that's
that
why
what you're
Spy
referring?
Family can be there, because it had the one core, obviously, in the spring and stuff like that, even though the second core was in the fall and that. So obviously it can come back again and stuff like that next year. But it definitely, as you said, because of, I guess, how they're voting for the public, I guess, as you said, recency bias makes it more optimal for them to say, okay, we're going to start fall of last year, as you said, to the fall of the next year. And then obviously they have, I think, 3 categories that the judging panel, they don't just select the nominees for the judging panel, and they even have on their site who the judging panel was to select the nominees. And also they had 3 categories, I think, that the judges actually would select a winner from, for example, which is also nice. So I guess for those ones, if you look through those are definitely names we have seen before, as we said. And the other thing is they do have hosts, because they will have a ceremony that they'll stream worldwide to the world, supposedly on March 4th, 2023, from Grand Prince Hotel, New Takanawa Hilton main banquet hall, I believe it said. But supposedly that's where they're going to be. It's going to be in person. I guess they're going to have some of the nominees there, because it's going to be in Japan, since a lot of the categories obviously are Japanese focused, except for the dub awards. And then they will have hosts. We saw it was Sally Amaki and John Kibera as well, which we've seen them before.
Yeah, well, we've seen. Well, it wasn't Kabira in past Crunchyroll presentations. I forgot his name. Maxwell. Maxwell was his name. I forgot his surname, but I just know that he has quite a very distinct voice. But he's also figured in. He's also been a presenter during Crunchyroll Expo in recent years as well. And I'll have to look up the name. But Sally Amaki, you guys know her pretty well, right? But
I guess a lot of people know her this season because of Tomo-chan as a girl, because she's doing the voice of Carol, as we had mentioned, and it's both Japanese and English, which you rarely see, as we've talked about before and stuff like that. Even though it has been done before, it has been done with Macross, of course, with Mari Ejima and stuff like that. So,
well, that's the one that certainly sticks out in my mind. Maxwell Powers, that's the gentleman's name who I was referring to earlier, who's been host of Crunchyroll Expo, I believe, in the past. So, yeah, Sally Amaki, and then John Kabira, who's a regular on NHK World. I'm familiar with him on NHK World. I know that he does other narration work and voice work. He's done various soccer games for Konami as well in the past. And I think some of their more recent soccer titles, to be honest. But as I said, I'm more familiar with his work as a voiceover narrator and TV presenter on NHK World, more on the narrator side in recent years. And this is probably not going to sound good. It kind of helps when your dad was an NHK executive.
about the connections, Mike.
It's about the connections. And Nepo Baby's become a bit of a catchphrase in the last couple months. Kind of sad a little bit, but
I'm sure they gave him a good hazing before they got him in there.
Oh, we have to go there. Okay.
But
all right.
It's funny. The other thing we had talked about, I know, off camera and stuff like that, and I'll actually bring in the Reddit Anime Awards, because Reddit Anime Awards, it's Reddit. As they said, they have 4 main categories, like main awards, genre awards, production awards, and then character awards and stuff like that. But Crunchyroll, I guess, since their merger with Funimation and all that other stuff, and being with Sony and stuff like that, I think they're definitely going for a more mainstream, a more prestige type thing, where all the awards and stuff like that are kind of what you would expect from an award show and stuff like that. And they kind of, they said they listened to fans about different awards and things like that. So maybe that's why people didn't like it, so they got rid of them. But this year's, they said they've admitted Best Boy, Best Girl, best antagonist categories in favor of a best main character, best supporting character, and stuff like that.
Yeah, they got rid of best fight. It's becoming, I said before, it's more formal and less MTV awards. MTV
Yeah.
Movie Awards, right?
And there is like the must protect at all costs character, but that doesn't feel too out of place. And the other thing they added, which we had talked about, is I think before they had obviously best voice artist performance for Japanese and for English, but now they've added a lot of those other languages that they stream on their platform. So we talk about Arabic, Spanish, North American Spanish, European, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, and so on and so forth, which is quite a big thing and stuff like that, because that shows how far we've come and stuff like that. Because it isn't just about English and Japanese. There's so many more languages across the world, and obviously they touch a lot of places in the world.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them making it less of a fan thing and more of a professional award show, so to speak.
I'm more impressed that it's becoming less, well, a little less English and Japanese oriented, and we're starting to go a little bit more worldwide in the language selection, and that probably speaks a lot to the judges, because we look at the judge list, and
I think it looked pretty worldwide, didn't it, Mike?
yeah, it was.
And I
It
know
was
you
pretty
noticed it.
worldwide. You see people like, I see Germany, I see India, I see from Arab nations. Certainly Great Britain. I'll just somebody from Brazil, a couple from Brazil, to be quite honest. And for reference, the names that do stick out. Okay, deputy at Gizmodo. So there's a couple there from Great Britain, one from Germany, I think. Yeah, one from Germany. Let's see. I'm just looking through the various profiles of some of the judges, right?
And then we have
France.
various different things. I think we have one from the Middle East in Hussein Ali Salon, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Says he's CEO of Anime Therapy, but they have very diverse group of people.
Yeah,
from across the world, obviously.
The names that us as on this show would probably be most familiar with: Lindsay Loveridge, of course, with Anime News Network. Both
Rolling Celts is on there.
Rolling Celts, yes. Well,
Kaho Shibuya, I know.
Yeah, Kaho Shibuya, who's become a little bit more prominent on the streaming, and her association with the Trash Taste Trio.
You said Daryl Surratt's on there, and his cohort and Gerald.
Yeah, Gerald and Daryl are. So the two of the co-hosts of Anime World Order are there, and
there are YouTubers like Mother's Basement on there, Jeff Crew.
So we can keep going on and on and on. But this is like, okay, one from Spain, one from a bunch from France, yes. So
well, that makes sense too if you think about it, because that is one of their biggest markets and stuff like that.
Well, it's
even before our nascent anime community grew and stuff like that, they were one of their biggest targets, especially on the manga side, because the dessin anime culture there in France. And Japan Anime is one of the biggest conventions in the world, of course, before even some of ours came about.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that was probably the first, arguably the first established market outside of Japan. Could we
and
say
think
that?
of it this way: the only place that took a established franchise in City Hunter and decided to make their own live action movie. I don't think anyone else in the world can pull something like that off.
Well, I mean, we've seen,
but you know what I mean, and make it their own. So
make it their
cliche way, not the Netflix way.
But then we can talk again about live action adaptations, and that's, of course, was some discussion of that earlier in the week. But let's not go there, because we all have to go to sleep at some point tonight. So I look down the list. What anything caught your attention on any of the nomination lists?
We got 14 categories, and obviously Attack on Titan is a big part of all of it, which does make sense. And I see for Anime of the Year, we also got Cyberpunk in there. We got Demon Slayer, Entertainment, District Arc, and Spy Family. So you got a lot of the big hitters for a lot of them. I saw Licorice Recoil
Licorice
in Anime
Recoil,
of the Year, and so is Ranking Kings. I'd love Licorice Recoil to win Anime of the Year, but
probably
obviously I
won't.
don't think that's going to happen.
Because looking at the others, it'll like Cyberpunk does have a case. Spy Family is probably arguably odds-on favorite, arguably favorite in this category.
Well, just imagine if they had included Fall, because they had a pretty stacked year. Then they would have had Chainsaw Man. They probably would have had someone else. So I bet Recoil and Ranking Kings would have been gone, and then you would have had like this ridiculous list.
Best action. So let's go through some of this. Something sticks out. Like nothing's like the thing is, I will admit, I haven't seen most of this. Seen episodes, of course, of Edge Runners.
And Kaguya-sama got best anime song in there too, so that's interesting.
Yeah, what was this? That's
from like the second season. So
yeah, it's like I think an image song basically, or at least a song that was only used once, like in just for one of the episodes, in the and used in the closing credits of that episode. So yeah, there's that. Okay, let's go down. Keep going down the list. Best character design, Cyberpunk.
No
Demon
surprises.
Slayer.
It's nice to see My Dress Up Darling got in there on that one.
Oh yeah, okay. Like best comedy. Okay,
see, I'm not sure. Sometimes I wonder about those ones because, well, Uncle from Another World, did that even finish? Because that one, remember, was another one of those ones that kind of had to stop because of issues.
Okay.
But then there's other ones like My Dress Up Darling, loved it. I'm not sure if I would consider it a comedy in my mind.
Kaguya-sama goes. I do think is.
No,
Spy
of course,
Family.
yeah. No, I'd say
Kaguya. Yeah.
Spy X Family as a comedy. Yeah, I know.
I think there definitely is comedy element, so I can see it in comedy.
My Family has
it's
a
like
lot of
action comedy is what it was. So I would definitely say either action or comedy it can go into.
Yeah, I agree. Spy Family is a comedy in my mind.
Best continuing
and it was in best action and comedy. So yeah,
it was. Best continuing series. I'm like, that's an interesting category to me. Like
they got Made in the Abyss in there.
Yeah, Made in Abyss,
second season, third season, however you want.
One Piece, the epitome of a continuing series. Okay.
Yo, they snubbed Detective Conan, man. What the hell?
What about Boruto?
No one really likes Boruto.
Yeah, I mean, Matlock, right?
Okay, that's not fair. I don't mind Boruto. It's just that his dad's still more popular.
Well, at least JoJo got in there too. So
argue with. Yeah, JoJo's there.
Oh yeah, that would have been surprising to not see on that list.
Okay.
Despite the lack of exposure Stone Ocean got because of where it streamed. And it sucks because, of course, it was the woman-dominant JoJo season where this happened.
Well, yeah. Okay, best director. Don't really know what to say there.
There's some good series in there and stuff like that, and you could say something.
Yeah, I mean,
and then we got best drama is the next one, which is, and those ones seem to be all in order.
Well, here's the thing. Kotaru Lives Alone is listed in both best comedy and best drama. Remember when we had that character from, I think it was Attack on Titan, listed as both best antagonist and best protagonist or something last year? It's sort of that moment that I'm thinking.
But no, you definitely see a lot of crossover. That's definitely for sure. You got fantasy has crossover, obviously, too. They have some new ones in there like Jobless, Reincarnation, Made in the Abyss is considered fantasy, which makes sense. Obviously, we have best ending sequences as well in there, which there's an interesting mix on that one too compared to best opening. So
yeah.
And we got films and stuff like that. I'm glad that we have some other ones like Deer King would be one I'd love to see win best film, but I know that's probably not going to happen. I'm guessing it's going to be
I'm glad
Jujutsu Kaisen, right?
Yeah, I'm
or,
glad.
Or Dragon Ball Super, probably that one.
I'm kind of glad they kind of,
Correct.
differentiate things like continuing series over best film or best. Well, they haven't said best one shots, one core or one season type shows, but yeah, I'm kind of glad we're talking about that type of differentiation, right? Because obviously films have a different feel and maybe a different animation quality to them compared to something a television series. Best main character, anything stick out there? Best new series? See, I like that. Best new series, best
Best new series,
Oh.
I think, is nice because there have been a lot more continuing series and stuff like that. I guess the other question would be, if it's a reboot, is it a new series eligible or no? I wonder.
Hmm.
Because that'll be interesting for next year, I guess. We'll see with Trigun and all those others, maybe.
I don't know if I would have put Yor as a supporting character rather than a main character.
I know, like there were a lot of people talking about support versus main and stuff like that. I
Even
know that.
Anya's debatable putting her as a supporting character.
Because
in
they
my
are
mind.
kind of main, so I guess they kind of had like to make a choice. But yeah, I considered the three main characters like Lloyd, Anya, and Yor. But as we know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awards, that's how they go sometimes.
I will say Tengen was pretty badass in that arc for Demon Slayer. I think he definitely should be in there.
We got best score and best opening
score.
sequence. We
And
got
Hayasaka.
we do actually have a best original anime, which is kind of nice. So that's those animes that don't have anything
source,
before
yeah.
it, like a source or something like that, which is nice. So it gives kind of a bit of a different feel. Like we got Birdie Wing, the golfing anime, which
Yeah, for as much.
people.
Yep, I like that list actually.
And then we got Recoil, I think would be a good one there. And then the Vampire in the Garden, which I know is on Netflix. That was when they helped do. Then you
Okay.
got your best romance, which has your Kaguya-sama and some other ones. Actually, My Dress Up Darling's in there, and that's what I was thinking of it more as a romance than a comedy.
Okay, so yeah, best supporting character,
As-
Hayasaka. Reading, you're right, Kevin. After reading a couple volumes now of Kaguya-sama, like I am up to I think it's number 10 now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because some of the best supporting characters is kind of like, I don't know about some of those ones. And then, best score, kind of expected on some of those things. But then we get, as we said, into the different dubs, which is kind of nice, obviously, for English, Japanese, and all the different languages. And obviously, it's across, like, it's not male or female, it's just you're the voice artist. So we got a nice mix of different people on all the languages, it looks like.
Do you want to say anything for the best voice artist in a performance in English? Because I can't say I'm familiar with any of. I've listened enough to this point.
Nothing.
Cozy D sticks out, I guess, because we've seen him at IFF.
Nothing too much on a lot of things on any of those and stuff like that for any of the voice and stuff like that. And then they get into some other ones. I know we haven't looked at all of them. I know the last one we're looking at on where we're looking is and it's one of the ones where isn't
It's an
awards.
MTV.
It's
an
kind
MTV
of
movie
it's
award.
the one they kept the must protect at all costs character, and obviously Anya Forger's on there, so I'm guessing she's gonna win based on all the others. But they
right.
obviously there are some other categories. I think there's presenter's choice, special achievement award, and stuff like that, and those ones are going to be done by the jury. I believe presenter's choice award will allow a special guest to present an award to an honored contributor of their choice. So I guess we'll see how that goes. So I guess that isn't jury based for presenter's choice, depending on who the presenter is. But special achievement, obviously, that may be helped with the jury, just like they did with the nominations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was how they actually got it out and stuff like that, where we said it was from fall of last year, 2021, to September 2022. But the other eligibility part that was interesting was one episode aired on television or online in Japan between that period, which is an interesting stipulation and stuff like that.
Some very
Especially
technical,
since it's an international type of award show, you know what I mean? It isn't
but
Japanese centric like other ones and stuff like that, but they're putting that stipulation that it was
that
on
kind of,
Japanese television or
but
online
it
in
kind of,
Japan, not
yeah, but it
worldwide.
kind of pulls it back into that Japanese centric
And that's
we
why,
were just talking
obviously,
about.
as we said, they are doing the in person, but they are doing it in Tokyo and stuff like that. They're doing it to the world, but they definitely are doing it for that part of the industry. And I'm guessing, well, maybe they would fly some people over for some of the dub actors and stuff like that, but I feel like they would be video linked in, I believe.
Oh, I have problems believing anybody like that would be flown in, because that might be
Given the
more
industry
than
and what
more
we've
than what
talked
more
about,
than what a
right?
lot of
Yeah,
voice
those
actors would make to
You
do
know,
so.
I'm looking at the best film nominees, and if any of those franchise movies win best film, I will riot.
that's why I said
See, that's
I would love for Deer King to win, but I just feel since voting, like public voting, and that they get to vote each day, I feel that's why I'm not too like I don't think Inuyasha, Bubble, and Deer King have a chance because people are just going to be voting for One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Dragon Ball. So that's
you
why
know
I'm not
you
too
I'm thinking it
faithful, but
will
you never
be
know.
you know
Jujutsu
you
Kaisen
just
Zero that will win this
yeah, you brought up a
by a
really
slim margin.
interesting thought. Like, once again, it comes back to my thought about differentiating, but there's another level of that said differentiation of titles, right?
And that's
Those
what I had
tied
mentioned.
to,
Remember about we had talked about the Reddit awards, and that's where it's interesting, where they had that differentiator where they had the same awards, but they had a jury panel and a public vote. And then it's like, okay, the jury and the public may not agree, right? Which is kind of interesting.
yeah.
But hey, it's Reddit, so
And hey, it's Crunchyroll. Hey, look, with all this talk we had over the last year about the lack of recognition and maybe in turn the lack of pay that voice actors get or don't get, maybe the fact that they put up awards for different languages grabbed my attention this year. And as I said, the industry doesn't really have those type of, like, the voice industry doesn't really have, at least the way I look at it, doesn't give itself those type of kudos. Right? I guess it's only becoming a recent thing. Did the video game awards have awards based on acting, on voice acting? I mean,
yes,
can you
they
answer
did,
that one for
because
me?
remember the longest speech was done by
Oh yeah,
the
that's
voice
right.
actor of Kratos.
And that went
He was
viral.
making sure that they got a lot of Steam decks out
What?
there in the wild.
Esteem.
But think about it
Why
this
was
way,
that?
I still think obviously these type of awards, at least on the Crunchyroll awards, no, obviously not Reddit, but Crunchyroll, since it's Sony and they're the big dog obviously in town, that there is a comparable. It basically is like the Game Awards, except obviously without world premiere happening every second of the moment,
That's one
or
way to put
someone
it.
crashing your stage because it's a
Huh.
public event.
Oh
But
god.
Oh god.
but oh my god, because as we know, the Game Awards is a marketing exercise. This, to a degree, is a marketing exercise in
Yes.
a way
Well,
too, because we saw how what was it? Obviously Crunchyroll, they said, "Oh, hey, look at these series that we've now nominated at our own awards and stuff like that." And High Dive and Sentai did the same thing as well, and as well, Right Stuff got in on it too. And I think they obviously would have done it even if they weren't owned by Crunchyroll, Sony. But Right Stuff said, "Oh, we're going to do some sales based on these anime award nominees and stuff like that." You know what I mean? So you could tell the gears were turning.
well, it's marketing, and well, it's Sony, and they have their video game experience now, right? Who wouldn't say some of that would rub off here? Some of that, I didn't say a lot.
But it feels like, as we said, I don't know, but for Crunchyroll compared to previous years, and I guess how we look at the different categories we talked about and how you compare it to other award shows and stuff like that, that they this year it looks like they're going more prestige and stuff like that. Yes, it's a marketing exercise, but they're trying to go more Oscars than video game awards and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
I
we'll see
mean,
how that goes.
video game awards, like awards in general, it aim for maybe a version of that of the Oscars in their own way. I mean, they are specific to whatever they're presenting, whatever they're whatever they're celebrating, right? So, Oscars is a very movie thing, but doing I guess in a gala type presentation like this lends something high profile, if not mainstream. Like video game awards, okay, we talk about it amongst the fandom, but when it happens, it's high profile within the fandom. So an anime awards like this, regardless of who's doing it, and we can discuss the merits about having a bunch of places do their own version of awards, whether it's Reddit or a publication like a science fiction website or a publication or even clubs. But to me, that's probably not that much different from Oscars, Emmys, Golden Globes, SAG Awards, People's Choice. So it's just to celebrate what is. And as I said, whenever you do an awards like this, even if it's of limited interest within or interest limited only to the fandom within, when it happens, it becomes a high profile thing within the fandom. And that's where I guess the merits of doing an awards show now, or an awards thing, especially if it's Crunchyroll, since they rule the world right now when it comes to anime.
And obviously, they would have more successes. They can engage the fandom being a streaming service, and that's where it started, probably, and stuff like that.
And since
we can make it more successful because we aren't just going to have it in a building and then maybe we only get a few fans in there, whatever, just the award nominees or whatever in there. We can actually bring the experience to your home and stuff like that, just like those other award ceremonies, but not just regular television, just through our streaming platform, which is probably a bigger play, obviously.
Well,
that can make these things work and continual.
Well, I mean, the fandom may not care much about television these days anyway. So that's not a wrong call. I mean,
and they're probably most of them are probably watching
right?
streaming. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming for those award shows too, because as we know, the TV numbers are tanking in the toilet, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I can't say that's a bad move at all. And then, of course, it helps when, Crunchyroll at this stage pretty much owns the soul of fandom.
Your soul is mine.
Just having said all of this, and maybe even making fun of it in some ways, I'm glad that they're trying to do, best performances in all these languages, right? I can't say I can make any guesses for English and Japanese, or English, much less Japanese, and then going down the list to all the other languages that I would have no clue about. But I hope that everybody listed here has a healthy following and their respect within the fandoms of those languages. But I said, can't say I know it all. But I think they really want to reflect how worldwide anime has become amongst its fandom, right? So I'm glad to see all these best performance categories in various languages. So March, right?
Yeah, March 3rd, I believe, is the date, so to speak, that they're going to be streaming it, obviously live from Tokyo. I'm not sure if they're going to do it tape delay or not, but it sounds like that's when it's happening. But I guess once
Well,
we get closer to
I would,
March, we'll find out, right? So
I would presume after the and how often has Crunchyroll done a live stream of anything? Because maybe they make it sound like it would be. I don't. Can you read between the lines of that? I'm not looking at the article, but it sounds like it would be a live stream.
it sounds
Wouldn't that
like
be
it
cool
would be
though?
and stuff like that. And so it's March 4th, 2023.
And
And they say it's at that hotel in Tokyo with the host and that, but they don't specifically say whether it's going to be live or not, or if they're
and if
just going
it's
to do
not,
a
then it
video
seems,
production of it and then post it later. But I can't
and
remember what they've done previous years.
and that's what I would presume we'd be able to do. Be able to see the show after it had happened too on some sort of video on demand.
But I guess it'll be interesting to see how that production turns out and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I think we'll dissect the winners when that happens a little over a month from now as well, and maybe we'll talk about the other the Reddit awards too. But yeah, award season continues. I don't know what else to add to that, but yeah. Although as I said, we can debate the merits, and I guess have a healthy debate as to who's nominated and ultimately who wins. Okay. Anything else to add, or should we move on?
I think we can move on. Did we
Safe-
want to
safe
do
place.
the last
we-
topic, I guess, about anime that didn't quite cross the finish line this season, or no?
Let's talk. Okay, let's go there. Let's talk about that briefly, and then we'll talk
It's-
about.
It's interesting
about,
thinking
fandom.
about, because it's been an ongoing thing. Like, obviously, COVID took a hit on all of them, and you think lessons learned. And it's interesting that they have had series. Remember, I talked about the Uncle one. That one I remember got delayed because of issues and stuff like that in production. And then that was summer 2022. For fall 2022, it was interesting that the new season of Golden Kamuy, they only did a few episodes and then they had to stop because, unfortunately, in that one I believe it changed the animation studios to Mappa, but supposedly a key person in that production that was helping them get things going and stuff like that unfortunately passed away. And because they were such a key figure, they had to re-scramble, and they said, okay, we got to stop and we got to start fresh. And so they basically stopped and basically are starting again in spring 2023. So they're going to start in April, start from episode 1 and rebroadcast the episodes, and then get to the new episodes and get it all out and stuff like that. And now we're on to winter 2023, where we are now, starting in January. And it seems Aniplex has had some trouble with 3 of their series, and Pony Canyon has had trouble with 1 of their series. So it's like we have Near Automata was Aniplex USA, and supposedly, I'm not sure if it's going to continue on, but it's now delayed, and they were saying COVID-19. They said the same thing about Unite Up, but they're going to continue on. It was just a delay for a week or 2, but COVID-19. And then they said Ayakashi Triangle, same thing, COVID-19 and stuff like that had impacted their production schedule, and that they were delaying the show's 5th episode and beyond. So they may be in the similar situation to Golden Kamuy, and so is Near Automata. And the one for Pony Canyon, Kubo Won't Let You Be Invisible anime, which funny enough is the only one I'm watching this season. That one is supposedly going to stop at episode 6. They're at episode 3 right now, but they're going to stop at episode 6. And funny enough, this one started a week later than all the other animes this season. So you would have thought they had buffer, but supposedly COVID-19 supposedly struck them too. And so after episode 6, they're going to stop. So that's another one. So 3 of them, Kubo, and then Near Automata, and then Ayakashi Triangle. It'll be interesting to see where they show up later, because they've made those agreements saying, okay, we're going to be on Japanese TV. You make these schedules. And Golden Kamuy, it took them till spring to get back onto TV and get back to streaming. So maybe this will be a season or 2 delay for them. And it makes you wonder, are they able to do that? Like, it'll be interesting. And it makes you question, as many people said, COVID-19 can't be the single factor that caused all these delays for a lot of the things. Like, there can be so many other problems that people have talked about, whether it's that they farm out to many different places, whether it's Korea, China, Vietnam, and so on and so forth. So you have a lot of bottlenecks there coming back. And especially in this season with Lunar New Year, if they are going to China, and as some producers have told some of the production committees and other people, we should maybe go to a different partner and maybe non China because a lot of people will be off during Lunar New Year and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different factors that could happen. The other factor being there's a lot of freelancers, obviously, in Japan, stuff like that, that help out with character design and other things. And sometimes you see their name quite a few places, multiple seasons. You may see their name maybe twice. So if they're working multiple projects, that may impact them too. Like, there's
Can't be
so
helpful.
many things that can happen, especially with the fact that we kept on saying there is, I don't know how to say it, but an ton of anime every season. And after COVID, you would have thought maybe we should pare back. But no, it's like we're going to go back to the way it was. And you would have thought they would have said, you know what, we can't continue on like this, especially since we knew they were really burning the candle and the rubber before that and stuff like that. And that a lot of people were getting burned out. Like, you would think a lot of these things would say maybe we should slow down and stuff like that. But they're like, no, we're going to continue on. And the thing is, as we know, they plan these things a year or two in advance. So then it's like, well, if you run into this problem, how are you going to reschedule and stuff like that? Because you're trying to get back to these TV networks that may not have a slot for you.
Well, I can't offer anything. It's just, if you want to go, it's more of a case of, well, if you want to have this type of output, have the people to do it. Have that have your ducks in a row in that sense. But that clearly hasn't been. That doesn't seem to have been the case.
But it feels
Clearly,
like
what do I know?
COVID-19. I'm not saying that it isn't a part of probably factoring in, you know what I mean? Especially depending on where it happens in the ball net, because they are across multiple countries sometimes for some productions. And I'm not saying that's a part, but it can't be the be all end all. I think there were a lot of other things and a lot of these things that something else happened. And sometimes you get more honesty, like Golden Kamuy, where they give you the reason to say, well, we want to respect this person. We want to feel good about everyone and stuff like that. And this is why we're doing it. And then you have these people that I guess feel like they're passing the buck. It's almost like if we had the Spanish flu and then during the aughts and maybe during the last decade, they just said, well, you know what? We have the flu going around the office. So, you know what? We can't put out the episodes for a long time or something like that. You know what I mean? And no one would accept that. You know what I mean? So now you're
Well,
saying, go ahead, Kevin.
no, you go. You finish, James.
No, it's just, it makes me wonder how they can be doing something unacceptable as making people go in, try to burn them out and stuff like that. Some of them may work sick and stuff like that. And now, under certain circumstances, they're like, oh, guess what? We're going to stop. Like, they should have been doing that before. You know what I mean?
Well, James, we all know how the
Like-
anime industry
Well, it's like,
grinds these people to the ground.
Well, you know
and
what?
sends
I'll
them
be
really
honest,
home.
is.
Kevin. I thought it wasn't people that did our anime. I thought it was AI robots. But anyway.
well,
It
give
might as well
that-
be AI robots if this
was-
is what's going to happen.
I was about to say, give that a few years, right?
Like in Aniplex's case, this is an excuse. I'm sorry. You know what's going on in China right now with COVID-19. Because that's where much of their contracting goes to. You know Chinese New Year is going to be in January. So whoever is not sick is not going to work during that time. So you as the producer should know better to have your contingency plans in place if you're really going to schedule this many shows. I remember reading how, like, amongst the 2, like, or 3, like, Sony-owned studios that they, did maybe 20 shows in the last 2 or 3 years or something? And I'm thinking, wow, like,
And remember, Katakawa's doing a lot of series as well. Like they put that in their marketing. It's like, oh yeah, we slowed down a bit because of COVID, but we're still going to meet our goal of doing this ridiculous amount of series and isekai series and whatever series. Like it's like, whoa, maybe you should kind of slow down a bit. Like you don't have to be doing one after the other, after the other, after the other.
especially when not all of them are going to be hits.
Mhm. So,
It's, I don't know.
fresh.
Am I
Well, I mean,
surprised? No. Are we surprised? No.
And
But
maybe, as we know,
you know,
some
par
of
for the
it
course.
is for them, people on the production committee. Maybe it's from, if it's a manga, maybe some of the publisher, things like that, maybe on there. And it's kind of like for them, you know what? I don't care how it looks and all this stuff, but if we get on there and get more sales for our original property, then I'm going to be happy. If I hit one or two, three of my trifecta between video games, manga, anime, music, whatever, figures, I don't care. You know what I mean? And you
And
have
you
to
know what?
wonder,
the mix, right? Back to the mix.
And
yeah,
you know
like
what?
the
It's like
mix,
the
you don't have to
government.
do everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I was going to say how, like, the government always passes the buck on to us, saying, oh, yeah, this shit doesn't happen because of COVID-19. And, oh, yeah, we're not going to have this in place. So it's just, well, you know, of course, companies are going to do that too. And anime companies are no exception to that.
Definitely bit them in the bum, as they say, this season for a few of them. That's for sure. And I don't think, as we know, we had some last year. We've had some already at the beginning this year. I think it's going to continue on until something hits them in the face, so to speak. You know what I mean?
No, they'll
Mm.
probably just let it happen again because
You
this is not the
see,
first time.
the thing is, is there going to be a hit in the face moment? Like at least one that they'll realize.
No, the hit in the face already happened, but they're just going to do as they do.
That too.
And you know what happens too? It's like you have the idea of like, okay, we can fix this for Blu-ray and all this other stuff. But in this streaming world, all the rest of us, because of Crunchyroll not wanting to do home video streams like High Dive and some others have done in the past, like even Funimation did, kind of hurts us too, because we're never going to get that quote unquote the version of their vision and stuff like that, where they actually say, okay, we're going to have to go back and fix it. And that probably affects them too, as well. You know what I mean?
Oh, man, we're going to go back to the
That's
A
days
lot of them
of,
are just
like,
like, okay, we're going to put it out the
oh,
door and then we'll
God.
fix it later, right?
You know, what
It's
this
an
reminds me
interesting
of?
way to put it.
You know what this reminds me of?
Hmm.
Remember Girls Bravo, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Season 1, when it broadcast in Japan, was edited. And season 2 was not. But those of us who didn't want all that steam had to wait for the Japanese DVDs to come out before they could be ripped onto the internet, and then the subs can then be inserted, assuming that you were using an MKV file and not an AVI file. And if you were watching it like 1 or 2 years later, like I did, you had to pray that somebody was still seeding that torrent.
You're saying that you didn't want to wait for the Jenny on DVDs there, Kevin?
As much as I enjoyed Girls Bravo, it was not worth me paying the singles route. Paying
Well,
for
remember, a lot of
$25
us
single
paid
DVD
when
for
the
it.
crash happened, so we paid next to nothing.
Well, you know, we all picked a few shows that we liked enough to actually buy,
A few.
to not pay like $2 a disc. Like some of us paid like 20 something bucks a disc when Right Sub did the 40% off Jenny on sales, or the 40% off ADV sales. You know, we picked our battles, right? So like Girls Bravo was not one of those shows for me.
Okay.
But now it's like, with what James is saying, we might be going back to those days where, your favorite show and mine, World's End Harem, that was heavily censored in its TV broadcast.
But they do have some uncensored versions of certain shows like that. And a lot of the times, as you're probably going to say, we don't get them. So people go to the 7 Seas, right?
Yep. And so in the case of World's End Harem, we would need to wait for the Blu-rays to come out. And I think they are still coming out too. And not only are we, waiting to see the boobs, but they need to fix all those animation errors because they just didn't have time to animate it properly. Not that it looked that great in the first place, but oh man, it was rough from some of the scenes I've watched.
With what you see from Crunchyroll, Funimation, Crunchyroll, they have tons of output and stuff like that on streaming. And as we know, even though obviously we've seen a lot of dub content coming out, even for this season, a few weeks after the fact and stuff like that, a lot of those, I think, and we see it from previous seasons so far, have not come out on home video yet, stuff like that. And it makes you wonder if there's going to be a threshold for them where they say, yes, we'll do a regular edition. And then other ones where they say, you know what, it underperformed. We're just leaving it on streaming. And then we'll never know. It'll just be forgotten many years from now and stuff like that. Because there are other ones I'm like, it's been over a year and stuff like that. And I'm hoping it's going to get a regular release. But nothing is panned out. So you never know whether it's going to happen.
This was already slowly starting to happen with certain shows. Like that one with like the boys in the jail. That's not Tokyo Revengers.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but I don't think that ever got a physical release. I don't remember.
Actually, you know what? Thinking of physical releases. So there was the April solicitation for Crunchyroll. It actually did not have much, but there was one title that stood out. And it's a title that we've seen come out many times before. And you know what it was? They decided because it's the 25th anniversary of Cowboy Bebop, why not release it again in a limited edition and a regular edition? And I think the only difference is a extras disc on there and stuff like that. But it's like we have all these other things they could throw out there. It's like we're going to go back to the golden goose, as they say. I'm sure there's some other golden gooses we'll see again and again. But a lot of those, what was it? Their discount line. Remember how they had save and essentials and stuff like that?
Yeah.
They have not reprinted any of those things. So it'll be interesting to see if they go back and reprint some of their catalog titles going forward at some point, or whether they decide not to do a discount line or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
Also, there's the 35th anniversary edition of Yu Yu Hakusho.
We can keep going.
That was a big. What was it? That was a big investment on that one, I believe, wasn't it? Like it looked pretty expensive.
Finally got those OVAs that they never put out.
Well,
yeah, if you want those, I guess you got to pay the piper, right? Because I wasn't into that, but I heard, yeah, it was interesting price point.
Yes. And the anime I was thinking of was Rainbow.
Okay.
What about the jail or whatnot?
Okay.
But thinking about it, Kevin, it's like we should probably let Mike have a moment because I think he went on a field trip this week, didn't you?
No, well, I mean we're finished our thought there, right?
As did I, actually. But...
Okay. Well, we both had field trips. Kevin, you want to talk about yours first? Mine's a little bit more thorough.
Sure. So very quickly, I did see the Slime movie on Tuesday. It's I did not watch any of this TV series before, so I went in blind.
Say it's a continuation, so you were probably lost if you watched nothing.
Yeah, so it was easy enough to pick up. It's just that seeing Slime Guy being so overpowered was a little eye roll inducing, but I had to let it go because I knew I had no context for it. But it was entertaining nonetheless. The anime original characters how they tied them in with the supporting cast made sense. It seemed like the main character just used his OP powers to just solve the problem, but it was more complicated than that in the end, so that was fine. It was a nice popcorn movie for fans. Overall decent. Nothing mind blowing, but it is what it is.
Right.
In terms of the actual field trip, I hit up a bunch of hobby shops in the northern GTA, or uptown as we say. So a friend and I went to, I think, 3 or 4 different shops. So we went to Argama, we went to Sinnoh, we went to X2 Akihabara, and we also went to J-Town as well.
We should maybe we should put a map of these for anybody in the Toronto area.
It's interesting how these shops are predominantly like toy hobby based.
Yeah, it's sort of how it goes these days, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot less like actual media sales and more just toy and hobby sales, because I do feel like fans nowadays are more inclined to buy these kinds of things.
In terms of actual products, physical items.
Yes. Now, I will say manga still sells because it did boom during the pandemic and a little bit before that. But you really don't see a lot of anime Blu-rays out and about anymore.
Yeah, but that's par for the course for
Par for the
just about
course,
anything.
yeah.
Why people are
When it
buying
comes to
online,
Blu-rays.
I guess, right?
Yeah, lots of PVC figures, lots of Gundam, because Gundam apparently is selling very well. Like,
People are actually
talking about the
building,
model
huh?
kits.
Because that used to be the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a niche thing, but I remember hearing that even when Planet Hobby in Mississauga was about to close, like, even though they charged extra for their model kits, still did pretty well for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, people are in these shops buying stuff. It was pretty interesting to see.
Somebody is, I guess. My turn?
Go ahead.
Okay. My field trip was back to my alma mater. I visited York University on Thursday afternoon and evening to check out the first showing of the term for the anime club James and I were both members of, and I actually ran. So the York University's anime club, Yama, as they call it. I visited the room where we taped our very first episode back in 2006 in early March, because it was across from the room where they hold the show. And I admit I knew I'd be in for a bit of a culture shock about how different the anime club world had become in the time that like from our time. And we're older now and probably come from a bygone era in terms of anime fandom at the club level. So I admit I knew I was in for a bit of a shock. And for reference, just a shock all around, really. I mean, I started when I got there and I took the subway there. I got off at Old York Lanes, which is basically the mall on the campus.
Do they still have the arcade?
Not where it used to be. Campus Cove, that was the name of it. That's long gone. That's been gone for decades, actually.
That's what I would figure. But I'm guessing they still have the old eateries. Most of them probably survived in there, along with the bookstore, because the bookstore can't go on its business.
Yeah, it's
But I know you've probably taken the subway there before, Mike.
Yeah,
it got there at some point.
Well, you know what's the sad part? The bookstore is more or less in the same spot, but its entrance is slightly different now. And you know what sort of occupies the exact entrance? It's a Shoppers Drug Mart, out of all things.
Oh, because
So-
I remember they did have like a drugstore and stuff like that, but it was like an independent. It wasn't like Shoppers or any of those others, right? So,
Mhm.
so I guess
It's-
maybe they sold out to one of them and moved.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the eateries, like they've changed a few times over. So,
So is
but there's
Popeye
a lot.
still there, and Great
Popeyes is
Canadian
there.
Bagel and Second Cup?
Great
And
Canadian, yeah,
those-
no, well, Great Canadian Bagel and Popeyes are the survivors. Just about everything
did
else.
the Japanese one not survive?
Oh no,
Because
it
I've
did.
had that-
Well, and
because the
that
Japanese one, that was a family I think that ran. They did some good
and they
business.
still do,
I remember.
and it's still there. It's that those are the only 3 survivors, really.
The falafel
Everything
shop
else
didn't
is gone.
survive.
No, it's gone. That's a Thai Express now. Anyway, as I said, I knew I was in for a shock, and going to the club itself for their showings, and it's referred to as a showing still. It's more like a lounge. It's more like a hangout, right? Everyone's sitting around in various parts of the room playing games, card games, board games, sometimes console games, and then they just have the projector running, and people are just gathering around it, essentially watching TV, watching a
in
few
the
shows.
gallery. Well, the gallery was a big space, you know what I mean? So you could definitely probably pull that off and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
it's
Sometimes, obviously, you remember before we did the showings and stuff like that, we'd use the projector. Maybe we'd play Smash, or maybe we'd play something else. And then we get the show on the road, as they say, and get the showings. And most people were usually just watching the showings and stuff like that. But I could see how, depending on what you're showing, it's like you have a big enough room that you could do different things, right?
Mhm. And that's sort of what it had become. It's less movie theater and more just lounging about, a social. I mean, looking at the Instagram, the club promotes itself as just a friendly space where people of similar interests can just hang out. And they can't do it every day. A lot of the members are all friends now and hang out at various points, but Thursday is usually the day where the bulk of them can gather at the same time and just hang out. It's a happy atmosphere, but in many respects, remember when we used some of the metaphors with Anime North, kind of like a bit loud, a little bit somewhat chaotic, maybe? It feels that way. It could feel that way, but an overall happy, I use the term happy mess. Sometimes that's what it felt like, but it's clearly the way that it should be for them. And
I remember we still had people come, not just for the showings, but I guess for the library. And I know that
yeah,
still continued on downstairs if you look down there. And
well,
out of
let me-
interest, what any shows that you remember seeing when you were there to see the showing?
I didn't recognize the titles. That's the sad part, and I gotta look that up just a little bit more. But it's, as I said, the way it runs itself now is different from the way when we were from our time, James.
I'm
And for
guessing it's
reference,
a new projector as well. It
Oh,
isn't
you know
your
what?
gift from many moons ago.
They actually recently replaced the projector. They replaced it over the last month. I found out. The new projector was making its debut that night, James. And the strange part,
So wait, if that's true, then that projector you gifted and we paid a bit of it for it too, that lasted a long time.
yeah, that
Of course,
lasted.
I think we
better
went
part of
for
6
a
months,
kind of a quality,
17.
you know, I mean, not highest grade, but still a quality projector, right?
They just said, they just said it was fading, so it was just time, and that's fine because the membership
And they
I know
didn't want
that
to
had grown
rely
very.
on, what was it? We used to rely on the tech people, and remember how we had to do that? That was
Yeah. So they got their own stuff, and I know that their membership had gotten quite high, so they're like they are one of the larger social clubs on campus, right? So there's that. And as it comes to the library, yes, the library is still there, and the people who run the projector are also the librarians. And they also told me, and this probably comes back to what Kevin was talking about earlier, just a few minutes ago. Yes, the library is there, and yes, there's a reasonable manga library, but it's people don't take out from it as much as you think. That's what they told me.
Well, not
So
surprising, giving where we
all
are
the
in
giving all
the
the options to
fandom,
consume.
right, compared to
Yeah.
where we were.
But people still are content to pay for membership to do all the other stuff. And yeah, it's not for the club. It's not about the Thursday show anymore, which used to be the centerpiece. They do a bunch of other events, a
I'm
bunch of
guessing
other
like off-campus
socials.
events
Off
and things like that.
campus,
All
on
as you
campus.
said.
Yeah, on campus stuff. Sometimes with in collaboration with other student bodies at York University and even administrative bodies too. So they do a lot of things. They're very active in there, and they do a bunch of other things. Overall, it's different, but I was kind of impressed. And I know we've used up enough time. It's just
I
I'm
guess
still
it's got to
gathering
make
my
you
thoughts.
proud, though, right, Mike? Because
Oh
Yama
yeah,
has been continuous, and there's been many anime clubs that haven't had that fortunate fortitude, right? Sometimes they've had to
yeah,
start and then restart under something else. You know what I mean?
yeah, and as a reflective point, Yama celebrates its anniversary in 2 days' time. But that's as I said, it was nice. It was a nice trip down memory lane to see it. So it is, like I said, and I have to constantly underscore it. It's very different, but it also has me, and I think this is part of a larger discussion especially when we get Amy and Mo back to talk about it. Although, if you want to chime in now, you could. What is the purpose of an anime club these days? Because at the time when we were there, it was to be able to share things that we couldn't find otherwise. Share anime, share manga, which was hard to find. It isn't nearly that much anymore. Granted, you have to do a little bit of digging, but it's not nearly as much anymore. So what is the purpose of the anime clubs now? Whether it be in high school, whether it be in universities and colleges, and dare I say beyond. What are their purpose? Is it the safe space? Is it the friendly space that the club now says? But that's still being broad. So it has me really wondering their purpose these days. Because I don't want to say they're passé. There's their usage, the eras within it have come and gone. We lived through one of the key ones, right, James?
Yeah, everything evolves and stuff like that, and I'm sure many people would say we were lucky, Mike, too, right? That we could provide what we could provide, because it used to be people went to the sci-fi conventions and were in one room and had people on a sheet reading what exactly was going on screen, and we were lucky enough that somehow we found things on the internet, so to speak. But we also did pay it forward because we were able to go to the comic den, and we were lucky enough to have them renting out anime DVDs and stuff like that, and for them to be
On
gracious enough
VHS before.
to for advertising and things like that, for borrowing certain things that we want to show on a certain night and then get back to them. And they were always gracious with that. And it was gracious that they were able to buy all these different series and rent them to us. And that's how some people saw a lot of series legally and stuff like that, instead of paying the bigger amount, as Kevin would say way back when in this episode.
So it's just, that's where I was after visiting, right? It's how our fandom has evolved, grown, and changed. And I generally welcome it, but of course you end up reflecting on it. So I wish I could add anything else. It's my thoughts are still very much in a tizzy after that visit. And frankly speaking, it is rather late. So
I guess we can, as we say, save it for another
save
discussion,
that
as
for
always,
another
and stuff like
discussion.
that, and kind of have the others what their thoughts are when they come on.
But yes, and as I said, if Kevin wants to jump in, if he wants to add anything, or he's not curious anymore.
Well, it's interesting because, on the contrary, I tried to look for my alma mater last week, and I couldn't find them.
Hmm.
Because when I went to our student center, I didn't notice them having a clubroom space, so it made me curious as to where they may be, if they're even there at all.
So you think that Utarpa may be the only survivor of the 3 UFD campuses, huh?
No, Utama's still there.
Utama is the sole survivor, I think. Utarpa's long gone, too.
Utarpa's not good?
It's
Dude,
Utama
Utarpa-
that's still there, yeah.
Utama's the sole survivor.
Wow, I guess
They
because I
also
would have thought
migrated
the
to
main
Discord.
campus would survive and Mississauga and Scarborough would not survive because they're like outside, right? You would think that.
What? Okay.
See, being a commuter school works against us.
Mm-hmm. Well, remember, York is sort of that, too. But
That's why I always thought it was just a testament to the systems you've all put in place that Yama has grown as big as it has.
I guess there were a lot of people, as we said, that cared. And what happened is we just brought up the next generation again and again for our own different methods and different ways. But we always found a way to continue. And sometimes we had bumps along the road, as Mike knows, but somehow we always found a way to continue the club and find a way to find our own spirit and make it continue, which probably is a testament.
yeah.
Because I still think they may be around. There's a couple of more avenues that I need to go about to double check. But I know as of 2018, the club was still around.
Okay. Well, then you should continue digging.
And I
And
should dig, yeah, because I went for at least a couple years after I graduated, but you get to a point where you're just like, it's time.
yeah, I think we all have that moment. Anyway, so for reference, I did say that the anniversary of Yama is coming up, and that comes up on Tuesday, January 31st. And you know what else is on January 31st? Well, let's open up this week's anime community calendar. Actually, there's one or two items that we wanted to at least mention here.
I guess even though there's Monday, we might as well start on Tuesday, as you said, because you never know. Maybe we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Let's see. The Japan Society in the States, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I believe it's New York, but as we said, I saw this and you probably saw it too, Mike. It was a webinar starting at 7 p.m. and I think you can still register for free. And it's called Japanese Animation and a Global Era. And I guess they're talking about anime and stuff like that. And Mike Toole is going to be on there. And then another fella called Thomas Lemaire is going to be on there. And he's supposedly the author of The Anime Ecology, a genealogical of television, animation, and game media.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the moderator, I think, is a film. I think we've talked about Julia Meckler in the past, too. Have we not?
We've seen, different moderators, before. And I know Julia has done some before. We've talked about that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know that in the little blurb they do have, they said exploring topics ranging from fan culture to marketing strategies in Japan versus North America. Our speakers will illuminate the historical framework behind the anime industry, as well as its role within the increasingly complex and interconnected worlds.
Yep.
Interconnected world.
Yeah, that's coming up on Tuesday. Hopefully there'll be we'll be able to see this afterwards, and I think Japan Society does have a website,
and I feel like we've watched some on their YouTube and stuff like that. So I feel we should have it somewhere, probably on YouTube. We're not going to say guaranteed, but given the past, I feel like we should have something like that we should be able to see after the fact for the main presentation, whatever questions they have afterwards.
And hopefully that's the case, because most people are likely to listen to this episode after the 31st. Monday, quickly, and then let's call it a night.
It would be Discotek day. Ooh. Because Discotek is doing another one of their live streams at 9 p.m. Eastern. And so I guess we'll see what they have to announce. I'm sure they've been doing their clues for the past week and a bit. And so we'll see what comes out. They said they have some odd ones and hope people enjoy it. And so I'm just going in blind as I usually do, and we'll see what they have to show.
And on the movie front, the next Sword Art Online progressive movie is going to be in theaters this week as well. I think for us, it's the 4th of February.
Well, as I said, there's stuff out there. So,
and I'm sure they'll have
do your
more
own
as the
digging.
months continue. And the
Yeah.
funny thing for the last calendar event, because we might as well throw one out there that people can actually hear and then say, you know what, maybe I will go to it later on, is that, Kevin, I realized TCAF for this year is actually not on Mother's Day weekend. They've
Indeed.
actually moved it up because someone told me, and it's surprising. It's the end of April, so it's Saturday, April 29th and Sunday, April 30th. So that'll be kind of nice to be able to go there, and maybe they'll have more people on Sunday, because I always remember it's like, well, I can't really go Sunday because it's Mother's Day, right? And I don't think a lot of people is like, do I choose my mom or do I choose this? I think you know who they're going to choose probably.
No, you just see your mom in the evening. What's so hard about that?
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes
Anyway.
you have to have brunch. You never know.
Well, at
It
least
depends. Yeah, it depends.
It's not a choice this time around. So cool.
So no, it's interesting that they chose that weekend at the Toronto Reference Library, and I'm hoping that this time finally it's like I'm actually going to be able to go. It'll be funny because I know they had it last year, wasn't able to go. Same with Anime North. So this year will be nice, and hopefully I can go to both events and we can get back at it, as they say.
Yeah, hopefully. Anyway,
And fight to get an autograph, depending on who they get.
oh boy.
Yeah, they
Well,
haven't announced any Japanese guests.
It's a few months away, so at least we'll get more information before then, right?
Yeah, it's more of a wait and see, just because if they get somebody who wouldn't demand as much, how do I say this? If it's not a Junji Ito level person, it should be fine. Because in the case of Akane Torikai last year, her works only started debuting in North America that year, so then her lines weren't nearly as long in comparison to, say, Junji Ito or Frey. I can't believe I'm blanking out. The Pun guy.
I know.
I'm
Okay.
embarrassed because I love Pun and Solanin.
Well, you going to look it up? I'll give you a chance.
I was trying to look at my shelf, but then all his books happen to be blocked from my view and vision right now.
I know. I'm kind of blocked from my view too, and I know Inio
Asano. Fuck.
Asano.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that was embarrassing.
Okay.
I know I was blanking too and I don't know why. It's like one of those things. But yeah, those two definitely, of any line we've seen at TCAF, they were ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes they have had other ones where it's stuff from Drawn and Quarterly and those older artists. So they have less lines, but still interesting conversations and stuff like that, and interesting to get their autographs.
Yeah. Well, as I said, we'll hear more about TCAF before it happens, and who knows, maybe I'll have time to go. Who's to say? Anyway, I think we've exhausted the list tonight. We all got to get some sleep soon, don't we? Us old timers. But it's always fun to be able to talk. And now maybe we should actually take a little bit of time to actually read and watch too. So,
did you not read anything lately?
Oh, well, just the usual, but we'll go through that a little bit next time. Hey, who knows? Next time, maybe I will have actually managed to get in an episode of the live action Maiko-san Chi no Makanai-san, because I do want to talk a little bit more about it after I've watched a couple episodes. So, can you get back to me on that one? I know you guys may not get the chance to watch it, but I know. And James probably doesn't, because he doesn't have a Netflix subscription, right?
Correct.
But we both watched the anime, and I know there's going to be a lot to talk about on my part when I see it. So can you bear with me on that one and be open to the discussion when I do? Is that okay?
It'll be interesting to hear, I'm sure, as always. And
Okay.
I think it's interesting too, because I remember when we were watching the anime, I was watching Crunchyroll and you were watching NHK World, right? We were watching completely different things sometimes.
Yeah, we were watching fairly different versions, right? That probably there were subtle differences, but
I was saying not completely different, but I mean unique, as we had talked about before.
Subtle enough that you end up with a different perspective of it, right? And we can talk, and let's save that because I think we can have that long talk a bit later on. Because honestly, that's all we have for tonight. Once again, if you want to contact us, animeroundtable@gmail.com, at animeroundtable, animeroundtable.com. And more to come on this, but twitch.tv/animeroundtable has still got to do some experimenting with some of the stuff we have before we actually start doing some streams here. And we'll put that on our YouTube channel as well. But once again, this is a podcast. So on the podcast side, please leave us a review if you can, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, whatever, because like I said, please leave a review because good reviews might help us in the algorithm and hopefully more people will be able to listen to us. Right, Kevin?
That's right.
Yeah.
Reviews.
Good ones.
Do them.
Please. Well, this is our third of anything we've done this month. So we've long met quota, but because of all of us having lives, we do generally aim to do something at least twice every month. But regardless, in any event, please give us a subscribe, like, or follow on any of the platforms we're on so you can be notified when we actually do put something there. Also, one more time, if you have a Spotify account, please check out our playlist, our Anime Roundtable playlist, for some music based on things we talk about on this show. The theme song is entitled Fubuki Snowstorm by Piko Misaki, which is the title track of her current album. You can check out more of her music at picoinfinity.com or on her Facebook page at Pico Zen Music. You could have listened to any anime podcast in the world, but you chose to listen to ours. And we really do appreciate it. So thanks for listening. And join us again for another edition of the Anime Roundtable.